Oh, howdy all, grab yourselves a beer, it is time for some Path of Exile discussion. Today we've got the Harvest trailer which dropped. So Harvest is going to be the new league, the one that's starting towards the middle/end of June, and I'm just going to play the trailer and give my commentary on it. There'll be some things that I miss, there's always hidden information in these, but this will be a good starting point, then we'll have a look at the actual discussion page.
Though this land is shrouded in pain and darkness, it teems with life. Behold the sacred grove.
So notice here that's a specific loot node that gives you things that don't actually do anything direct. However, there's also some information here about what these various seeds do. So reveals a random physical modifier crafting effect when harvested. There were two other ones as well. Let's see if we can catch those. Reveals a random soccer color crafting effect when harvested. We'll get to learn all of those as we go. It's very difficult to try and get it frame perfect to see what's coming up. So the way that I see this playing is that each zone you're going to pick up one of those seed caches, and then you're going to need to use several of them in order to fill up this grove. The more that you fill up the grove, the more flexibility you will have. So we'll get to see exactly the crafting methods that come up out of this later, but it definitely seems like there's some strong ones.
But beware, nature protects itself.
Okay, now this is the interesting part. This is the crafting specific stuff, and there's some stuff here that looks significant. Change a unique armor into another unique armor of the same type. This is undoubtedly going to have a couple of edge cases that are really, really strong, where you use a specific item level unique armor of a specific base, and there's only one or two options that it can become. So keep an eye on this. Change a unique jewel into another unique jewel. This is just going to be one of those ones that's a bit of a dumpster tier option, but there is it's similar to the bestiary one of the same effect, but there is the potential to maybe get one of, because there's always a couple of unique jewels that are really expensive in any league. Change a unique ring, amulet, or belt into another unique item of that type. Again, that's something you're pretty much always going to use on belts as long as it's able to give Headhunter. Then we've got the significant ones. Augments an item with a new influence modifier. So what I think this is doing, given that the item here is Shaper influenced at the start, and then when it's hit, it seems to remain Shaper influenced. That's really interesting. There's also this last option, remove an influence mod from an item and add a new influence modifier. This is going to be phenomenal when it comes to crafting items that have one specific influence modifier you want. So let's say that you're trying to craft a set of Tailwind boots, and you've got an item that's a set of two-tone boots that are excellent, but they don't have Tailwind. You then go and apply a Hunter's Exalted Orb on it, and you fail to hit Tailwind. You hit one of the other mods instead. You're going to want to be using this over and over and over again until you get Tailwind. This is probably one of the biggest, assuming that there's any availability for this this last effect, this is going to be a huge piece of crafting power creep. You can now essentially, by repeated use of this, essentially guarantee that your Conqueror's Exalt hits exactly what you want. It's just going to take many uses of this. You can maybe even see it as being like Eternal, no, it's not even like Eternal Annul Exalting, it's stronger than that. So this is really, really strong. And here's one of the fights that comes up. Not much really to say about the fights. And here's let's just not allow that to flick through so quickly. So that was way too quick there. Set an item to 6 sockets for some unknown cost. That's quite useful, but we don't know exactly how that's going to, how much 65 life force is. Removes a defense modifier from an item. So this is a targeted annul. That is just incredibly strong. Randomizes, so divines only defense modifiers on an item. So this is a targeted form of divine orbs. Removes the defense modifier from an item and adds a new defense mod. So this is something that if you've got a piece of energy shield armor that's got an outstanding, two outstanding rolls. So maybe you've got seraphims and I can't remember the names of the other ones. I think it's incandescent. And then you've got the third energy shield modifier is bad. Maybe you'd be able to hit perfect with that. Reforges are rare items with new random mods, including a defense modifier. So this is just a worse version of a dense fossil at this point, I think. Then this next one is just basically a dense fossil. And then augments an item with a new defense modifier with lucky values. So there's just so many different things here. Like there's so many mods that you can get that do something significant for crafting. Transmute a unique, transform one unique into another. Weapons, change a unique item into another random unique. Armor specific. Okay, this is mostly in line with the bestiary crafting, except that your input doesn't necessarily need to be as tightly controlled. But you know, just changing a unique into a random unique jewelry or belt. This isn't all that powerful. It's weaker than the ability in bestiary to change one unique belt into another.
But do not forget, whatever you sow, you must harvest.
Now at this point, all I can get, I can't get out of my head the Nightwish song Harvest at this point. So I'm going to try and avoid singing that on this video. But it's just in my head now. Just jumping up the volume for Chris's section.
In the Harvest League, seek out the seed cache in every area you explore. Take its seeds through Oshabi's portal to the Sacred Grove. Sow those seeds to grow dangerous and rewarding monsters. When they are ready for harvest, slaughter them and extract their life force.
This sounds cool. Those monsters look really resilient. It's hard to say if that's accurate or not. It's hard to say whether this is just a weak character or whether it's these monsters are really resilient. But it would be a positive thing to have a fight against lots of monsters at once that you're in control of. You're in control of the intensity, but that they are durable.
Use this life force to easily craft power.
Okay, so Reforge's single socket bleach, add a caster mod, reforge the color of 2 sockets. This is weaker than it sounds, like changing 2 random sockets on an item to red and blue, but it's still nifty. It's the sort of thing you might want to use if you had an item that was all green, like if you had, say, an assassin's garb, it's all green, and then what you actually wanted was 4 green, 1 red, 1 blue. This would be ideal. I don't think you're going to have permanent access to this crafting mod though, so it's going to be one that will be an element of luck, whether it's useful or not. Reforge is a rare item with new mods, including a caster modifier, so a weaker etheric fossil, and yeah, I kind of like the last one again. It's a divine orb that only affects the caster mods.
Powerful items.
And yeah, that's a single socket bleach. That's interesting. So that uses up the craft. This appears to be the number of times you can use that craft. And then that uses up some of your life force. And then I think you can save over the life force if you don't want to use it.
Store the leftover life force to fertilize higher tiers of seeds.
Yeah, so you can definitely save it over. Now, here we go again. Socket changed to green. Add a caster mod. That seems really strong, just augmenting an item with an exalt that targets caster mods. So this is equivalent to crafting cannot roll attack mods, then also exalting the item. And it seems like you've got more access to that than you would to exalted orbs. and augments an item with a new caster mod with lucky values, even better.
Discover rare seeds that yield exotic crafting options or dangerous in-game bosses. In addition to many new items and skills, this expansion also contains major revamps to the passive skill tree, war cries, slam skills, brands, and over 50 unique items. The harvest begins on June 19.
Alright, so the big news there is that it is coming out on June 19 as well. There's a lot of expectation that it might be delayed, but it seems that they've managed to get to a state where they're able to commit to it being on the 19th. Anyways, let's jump across. That's the end of the trailer. Let's have a look at the actual main page, the pathofexile.com/harvest. So there's not actually much hidden information that I've been able to find in this, but I will refresh at this point because sometimes the things take ages to load on this. So we're just going to go have a quick look down here. So we've got Ashabi is the new NPC, cultivating the Sacred Grove, and this is where you come in. This is just basically the high-level overview. We've already seen everything here. Of note, though, 8 new skills, 2 new support gems, one of which we'll see today, revamps of 200 weapons. This is something that's been needed for a while. 200 weapons have been bad. This will be interesting because it will mean that the outlier 200 weapons that are currently good, and here I'm thinking of Starforge and Voidforge, they may suddenly become very good. Additionally, if you're a standard player and you have access to a legacy supported by Fortify 200 weapon, that may also be very, very, very good in the future. Warcry skills are changing, brands and slams. So slams is a bit of discussion of later. I really want to see a full breakdown of this from GGG because I'm not really sure what's going on with it. There's some changes to some 200 weapon attacks, and then there's some passive skill tree changes as well. Also introduced 12 new uniques and rebalanced 50 existing ones. No mention of divination cards there, which I always think are something that have quite an impact on the way the game is played. They can often drive people into certain maps over certain other ones. So there's no new divination cards in this league. So now here's some again more high-level information. Nothing really says anything beyond the. There's no gameplay hints here. It's all about just the look of the league. Now, plant potent seeds. You notice here, reveals a random physical modifier crafting effect when harvested. So it looks like the grains that you pick up will not, on their own, provide. They don't necessarily directly correlate to the crafting methods that you get at the at the harvest screen. Instead, they give you a certain number of random ones, and then from that you will get, you'll see some of the crafting methods that we saw during the trailer, some of which were really powerful. Then we have here, this one consumes wild units of condensed life force, so that seems to be a prerequisite that you also craft, that you also plant something else, and then it changes the element of elemental modifiers when harvested. So that's something that's quite a narrow niche, and it requires you to be planting other things with it as well. Again, this has other requirements before you can plant it, and then reveals a random effect that exchanges specialized currency. So I'm not sure exactly what that's going to mean. Maybe it's specialized currency. To me, sounds like Conqueror's Exalt, so it's like you put a Redeemer Exalt in, get a Warlord Exalt out, but I don't know if that's going to be what it actually means or not. That's just what it sounds like. And then there's this section which basically gives you the sense that you can control how difficult these fights get. Now, this is interesting. Mousing over these items that you see here will give you some information that's not immediately apparent. Quicksilver Flask, have a look at this. This has a new sort of decaying over time explicit. This is not a 20 quality Quicksilver Flask. This is a 78 quality Quicksilver Flask, but each time you use it, that quality decreases by 1. So that's something that is interesting in that there's no graphical effect that shows that there's anything strange with this flask. Next up we have Tribute to the Goddess. This is really interesting. The Eternal Labyrinth has been something that when it was added, Zone level 75 was sort of about as far into endgame as people generally got unless they were experienced players. So most casual players would hit a stone wall at about tier 8 maps back then. And so what that meant was that the Eternal Labyrinth was, for many players, the hardest encounter that they would be capable of beating in the game. And therefore the chests at the end of it were really impressive. However, over time, there's just been so much power creep that the Eternal Labyrinth chests have sort of faded into complete and utter irrelevance. If you're running the Labyrinth now, beyond the first time to get your Ascendancy, it's to get the enchantment device instead. Well, this is interesting. This is saying that this opens the Eternal Labyrinth of Fortune. Kind of hoping that this is a monster level 84 version of the Labyrinth that then doesn't offer any more Ascendancy points, but is just a harder version of the Labyrinth with more stock chests at the end. I think that'd be really interesting. Anyways, we'll see on that. Jeweled Legion Scarab. So this is a tier 4 Scarab, something completely new. This map does not consume sextant uses is the new thing on this. That is an implicit on a map. So presumably there's going to be other implicits that can get crafted on a map. The other thing of note that may easily be missed is that Dig is now a tier 5 map, and it has moved out of Hayward Hamlet. Dig at the moment is tiers 11 and 14 from memory, or maybe it's 11 and 15. So it's only available as a 3 or 4 Watchstone version, and it is in Hayward Hamlet. So there's been a reshuffle of the Atlas. I'm always a fan of these Atlas reshuffles. I know standard players hate them, but they just mean that there's just time for new Atlas strategies to be brought about. And this is interesting. Area contains 20 extra Harbingers on a tier 16, not 15 beachhead. This is going to be a really, 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 really crazy experience to run. This area is just going to be swimming with Harbingers. So if you've run the beachhead map, it's got a very light amount of normal monsters on it, and it has 6 Harbingers outside. That's going to be 20 instead of 6, and then there's the boss fight where you fight 6 Harbingers back to back. Presumably you'll still fight 6 of them back to back. Do pay attention, 100% increased monster damage is a lot. That is a lot. This is not going to be a walkover like the normal beachhead is, at least for people who are established in endgame. Also pay attention to the quantity and rarity. They are much higher than they normally would be on a beachhead. Now, also we have a number of other crafting mods here. Change a stack of oils into another random stack of oils, so you're going to definitely always want to be carrying 10 of your sepia oils or clear oils or the like, and then just hope that you get a gold one with that. You probably won't. Replaces a cold mod with an equivalent fire mod. This is incredibly powerful. It's also going to create potentially a situation where some really weird items can exist. What I'm interested in seeing is how this works with mods that are Conqueror specific. So, for instance, consider the Redeemer mod pool has a number of cold mods that don't exist, as there's no fire up version of them that exists. Likewise, there is the Incursion mod pool. Contains things like additional damage to chilled enemies as a mod that's on gloves. Really interested to see how this interacts with all of those Incursion mods. We're going to have to find that out over time. Reforges the color of a random socket, yep, turning a socket red. Augments a rare item with a new physical modifier, so that's a specific Exalt that targets specifically physical modifiers. This is going to be a really powerful crafting mod for certain uses. However, it mentions here level 45, and I'm not sure what exactly that level is going to impact on what you can craft. Forges are rare with new random modifiers, including a caster mod, so that's just a worse version of an etheric fossil. Now here we have this Evolve Your Garden section, which allows you to... these are just various things. I think these are just going to be things we're going to have to play around with early in the league and figure out what exactly they mean. 3 bosses exist, and so Ursi, Jannar, and Namharam, and they are going to be something we're going to probably want to fight. Having a look-see, I think... I know that's the... We'll come back to that later. Now, notice here some passive tree changes. First thing that I noticed was that actually the Constitution area has remained the same, or at least it appears to be the same. Who knows? Maybe it's been rebalanced down a bit, but it's one of the most powerful areas on the passive tree. In fact, it's so good that you need to go to it on every build unless you've got some really unusual reason why you can't. So who knows? Maybe it will be or not. This is the new thing here. I'm not sure if that's one of the... I'm not sure if all of the images of the versions of the things on the passive tree that are added by Timeless Jewels, but they do say that there's some support for two-handed weapons for Rage, and also some Timeless Jewel nodes are being added as well. Now, this is the Violent Slam section. This is intriguing. Several melee skills are being recategorized as slams. There's a new slam skill and a support gem, and there are some changes that are being made. So, among others, here's this Fist of War support. An ancestor appears above your character to perform a slam in unison with you every few seconds. Causes a slam to deal more damage in an increased area. That's going to all come down to how the numbers are. Tectonic Slam uses less endurance charges, so this means maybe it can be used by builds that are not Chieftain or Juggernaut. And it also gains more area of effect per endurance charge. So yeah, I wasn't impressed when I ran Tectonic Slam a couple of leagues ago. I gave it a shot, but who knows, maybe it's worth trying again. I didn't feel like it had the damage, in my opinion. And here's just a graphic that showcases something happening with a slam that on a very crowded screen. Now, next up, there are some changes to Warcries as well. 4 new ones and reworked 3 existing ones. Warcries now scale based upon the power of nearby enemies rather than the quantity. This is a really interesting change, so they give you more power when you need it most. Many Warcries also exert your attacks, increasing their power for a number of attacks. I'm not sure exactly what that means. So Seismic Cry is probably never going to get used because of knockback, and knockback is just objectively a bad mechanic in the game at the moment, so that's unfortunate. Unless, of course, there's some way to turn off the knockback. It might get used as a sort of emergency button sometimes, but I don't think it's going to be widely used. Rallying Cry. So this one's interesting here, in that this causes your... no longer regenerates mana, so its main use is basically gone, but now it instead grants a percentage of your weapon damage to each of your allies based on the power of nearby enemies. Got to see this in practice. This might be the sort of thing that can create new support builds, as well as that your next few attacks do extra damage. And then you'll notice here that there's 2 Warcries back to back. Something that requires quite a bit of setup at the moment to get that. We'll come back to the brands in a sec. So 3 new brands, something would be really interesting. 1 brand support, and have revamped existing brands. Made brands more versatile while reviewing how their core mechanics work. So Archmage, goodbye. Brand Recall also no longer reigns supreme, but is a useful tool among many new options. So Penance Brand here will attach to a nearby enemy, then become active. Energy builds up and spreads to an additional nearby enemy each time it activates, quickly dividing and spreading between enemies. So this sounds like it's something that is a hybrid of an AoE skill and a single target skill. If you're fighting 1 enemy, it will deal maximum damage. If you're fighting, say, 6 enemies, it will spread its damage between the 6. That's an interesting mechanic, and I want to see if I'm right on that when we get some hard numbers. When the brand is removed, the energy on each enemy is rapidly released in a series of explosions. Hello, Brand Recall. This could be really interesting. Arcanist Brand. I really like this. When it's placed on the ground, it attaches to a nearby enemy and begin triggering linked spells in a sequence. This is going to cause some screen-melting chaos. Imagine if you had this with some of the most graphically intensive skills like Fireball with the Dragon MTX, Siege microtransaction, a Siege Firestorm, and all sorts of other Novas and the like. This is going to cause absolute chaos all over the screen. I'm not sure if it's going to be good. Who knows? That's going to come down to the numbers, but it sounds like it's going to be good fun. And this here is a bit hard to work out what exactly is going on, this image, so I'm not going to really be able to say much more about it. 12 new unique items and reworks of 50. Oh, sorry, over 50. Reworked uniques are as good as a new unique in my book, because often the ones that are targeted are usually ones no one is using. The only one I can think of that was already good that was reworked in recent times was Vol's Devotion. So, Wake of Destruction drops shocked ground while moving, lasting 2 seconds. That's the new mod on it. Otherwise, I think it's pretty much the same as it was. So these have gone from pure leveling item to something that does something you can't otherwise get. I do want to know if this shock ground affects you or not. If it affects you, then these are going to lose all of their current use as a leveling item and potentially gain some new use at endgame, but only once you're able to maintain flask uptime on anti-shock flasks. Moonbender's Wing, this is now triggering Lightning Warp on a hit with this weapon. This is going to do some ridiculous things in conjunction with Spectral Throw or various skills like it. I don't know if I want to use it, but I'm sure there will be people that really love the sound of that. Storm Secret for next up. You'll notice I'm skipping the one that's the most interesting for last. Now this one here has it augments your Herald of Thunder. So Herald of Thunder also creates a storm when you shock an enemy. Note that Herald of Thunder can't shock itself, so you've got to be inflicting shocks via some other means. Herald of Thunder's storms hit with 33% increased frequency, and you suffer 250 lightning damage whenever Herald of Thunder hits an enemy. I am sure that there will be builds that use 2 of this ring. I'm sure there will be builds that do that, and that will, just basically accept that they're going to be taking a lot of lightning damage as they're playing. They're going to need to augment their lightning resistance beyond 75%. But that said, even at 75% lightning resist, you're only taking 62 damage of actual damage each time that you hit something. You can easily get your lightning resist to 80, at which point you're taking 50 damage. That's pretty minimal. And now we have the really intriguing one. Doriani's Prototype, Saints Horberk, and it's got some life on it. You deal no non-lightning damage. Armor applies to lightning damage you take from hits. Lightning resistance does not affect lightning damage taken, and nearby enemies have lightning resistance equal to yours. So essentially what you're looking to do here is to set your lightning resistance as low as possible. You're then going to rely upon armor to survive incoming lightning damage. You're going to need a lot of armor for this to be viable, and I really need to math this out a bit, but I think this is a lot better than it looks. And then nearby enemies have lightning resistance equal to yours. If you're sitting at minus 60% lightning resistance, that's just an absolutely staggering amount of extra damage that you're getting. This is miles better than wearing a helmet with nearby enemies have minus 9 resist and using awakened lightning penetration. Miles better than that. So it's a massive damage multiplier, but it's one that comes with big risks. The other thing that comes to mind with this is Avian Twins Talismans. They're something that cause you to take 50% of incoming lightning damages suffered as damage of a different element instead. At least that's one of the rolls they can roll. So it's possible that this will be used in conjunction with that. I'm not really sure. This is not the sort of thing that you can just slap on a build and it will work. It's going to be one of the most build-defining uniques around. One very important warning, if you're thinking of building around this at League Start, don't, because who knows how rare this item's going to be. Delirium in the core game, I really like the way that they talk about this. So Delirium and Cluster Jewels are being integrated into the core experience. Because Delirium stacks with other League mechanics to make them more difficult and rewarding, the chance of encountering it rises exponentially with the number of other League mechanics in the area. So, you're not going to see Delirium very much until, well, you're probably not going to see it at all until Act 6 when Abysses appear, and then after that it's going to be very, very rare. But once you start scarabing up maps, you're going to start seeing Delirium much more. Next up you have the Vulcan Renderer, which has been something that's, it's in beta at the moment. I have found it to be, it makes the game play smoother, but it also makes the game crash more. That's been my experience. Other people have said that it is the best thing since Lockstep, and also a number of people have said that it's just unplayable on their system. GG are undoubtedly working on this at the moment, and hopefully they're going to have it working even better than it is now. And lastly, there's the new supporter packs, which, like, obviously these are always a question of personal preference. The Insatiable Malice supporter pack looks really good to me. These come with weapon effects, but also with weapon skins. So you get this sort of sickle and also the red glow on it. I quite like this. I quite like this aesthetic, and I really am not a fan of this one. But hey, some of you probably are. Anyways, that's my first thoughts on the Harvest League, what we've seen so far. If you've got any comments or questions, fire away below. Otherwise, I'm going to leave it there. I hope you have a good one.